The first season of Vinland Saga does not hold back on depicting the brutality of the world. It's medieval Europe. War, the struggle for power, wealth, and safety is frequent, and those who do not die in battle or civilian massacres are often sold as slaves. The Vikings, with their culture of practically worshipping warfare and death in battle, fan the flames which consume the continent, and most of them enjoy doing so. We see people do horrible things, whether it be the character's only option or just something they felt like doing. And at the center of the narrative is the dynamic between Thorfinn and Askeladd, a brilliant commander deceiving everyone around him in order to do what he can to help his true people, and a boy who so desperately wants to kill him in order to avenge his father. The story takes us through tense political negotiations, different characters scheming behind the scenes, and battle after battle until... Outside my old high school, there's this wooden fence that encloses a small area which the garden club uses to grow plants or something. I helped build this fence with some of my friends. I helped dig holes in the ground for the posts, and I helped put on the planks. I had never built a fence before, and so I learned how to use tools which I had never used. Eventually, the project was over, and we continued on with our lives. I don't go to this school anymore, but I pass by sometimes, and I see the fence. It's still there. Okay, but why are they farming? Vinland Saga Season 2 understandably feels like an odd departure to some people, but this arc is really the most natural follow-up to the previous events of the story, and actually pretty perfectly communicates some pretty important ideas. Okay, let's go back to the start. Thorfinn had a great dad, one that tried to tell him some pretty powerful shit, but just like any other child, Thorfinn is not able to truly understand what his dad is trying to tell him without the proper amount of life experience and with the critical thinking and introspection skills of a 6-year-old. And then, when his dad dies in front of him, Thorfinn understandably does not handle it very well. For the rest of Season 1, Thorfinn's desire for revenge is kind of a defense mechanism. Instead of properly dealing with the feeling of losing his father, he focuses purely on his rage. His goal of killing Askeladd in a fair duel becomes his entire purpose as a human being, which leads him to silence any morality he had inside of him as he becomes a destructive tool of war. The only thing he learns is how to fight, because all that matters is revenge. But then, Thorfinn's one goal is taken away from him, the one thing he was trying to achieve, which tunnel-visioned him for his entire adolescence, suddenly unattainable, leaving him with nothing else to strive for. His life was worthless. Thorfinn was already a slave to his hatred, but now with not even the desire for revenge pushing him forward, it's only natural that he would lose his freedom completely. When we see Thorfinn again for the first time in Season 2, he is simply going through the motions, with no feeling or drive to do anything for himself. As he says later in the season, he is empty. There is nothing inside him. No dreams, no passions, and no skills other than the ones he developed to hurt other people. This is the point of the first season, to show that Thorfinn's incredible hatred blinded him from finding anything meaningful in his life. The only thing keeping him alive at this point basically is instinct. That is, until he starts working with Einar. Einar is basically the best person that Thorfinn could have ever been a slave with. Two important things. Part 1. It's part of human psychology that putting work into something which you only see the results of gradually over time is good for your mental health. Exercise is the example of this I've heard people talk about the most, but I think what we see in this arc is another great example. Up to this point, Thorfinn had learned nothing but how to kill and destroy, but to bring him out of his feeling of worthlessness, he must take his time to learn how to help build and grow something. Einar had spent his whole life doing farm work, and so he is able to help Thorfinn attain the fulfillment that one gets from playing Minecraft or Stardew Valley, except it's like real life. After Einar helps Thorfinn plow a field and plant crops for the first time, Thorfinn is at first somewhat confused that they don't have to do much other than wait patiently for the wheat to grow, because creating something that is good takes time and patience, whereas destroying something takes mere moments. The farmhands destroying their field then kickstarts Thorfinn's self-reflection on his past. It forces him to think about the pain and suffering he has caused, and what will continue to happen if he goes back to deliberately harming other people. But before we get more into that, second Einar important thing. Part 2. Working on the farm provides Thorfinn the feeling of creating something and the pain of seeing it destroyed. Working with Einar provides his first friend. Einar and Thorfinn are forced to do hard work together and suffer together under the oppression of the farmhands, and this shared hardship leads to a slowly growing bond between the two. However, this is almost interrupted when Einar learned that Thorfinn was a warrior, one of the people he had learned to hate. Einar spent his whole life building and growing things, while warriors live to destroy. They're the people who destroyed his home twice. They're the people who killed his dad, his mom, and his sister. But Einar does not give into his anger. He allows their bond to keep growing. He becomes the first person that Thorfinn feels comfortable opening up and sharing his feelings with, and then actually becomes the first person to acknowledge that Thorfinn can change, and has already changed. Just because he was a warrior in the past does not mean he will be a warrior forever. He can change and grow, but just like the crops which they have worked so hard to cultivate, it will take time. Seeing the farm destroyed then doesn't just teach Thorfinn the pain of seeing something he has helped build get destroyed, but also serves as a metaphor for his mass slaughter of other people. We can't be certain that someone will grow to be a good person, just like how we can't be sure that any individual wheat sprout will grow how we want it to, but there is always potential for humans to change for the better, which is why cutting their lives short is always a tragedy. Thorfinn's actions have probably led to the deaths of countless good people like Einar, and countless more people with the potential to become good. And once he realizes that, he finally realizes that he doesn't want to hurt or kill people anymore. He wants to do things that have a lasting good impact on people. He begins to dream of a world without war and slavery. He begins to dream of Vinland. Each one of these pieces helped Thorfinn better understand what his father was trying to tell him, that human life is valuable and worth protecting, that war and hatred are destructive both to others and yourself, and that peace is something we should aspire to achieve. A true warrior needs no sword because a truly virtuous and powerful person should ideally not have to kill and destroy in order to protect what they care about and make the world better. Instead, they should be able to use the potential for growth in every person to make that difference. Of course, the reality of the world often gets in the way of these ideals. In a world where violence is seen as good, or as the only way to achieve certain ends, it becomes necessary to use violence for self-defense. But that does not change the fact that death is terrible, and harm and destruction must be minimized. Not all conflict will be solved without someone getting hurt, but we are all still just people trying to protect what we care about and be happy. This is why when we see great things achieved through movements that aspire to be non-violent, challenging the status quo with an appeal to human empathy rather than use of force, we see it as something to admire, because no one has enemies. And that brings me to why I think people being annoyed about this plot development is pretty silly. Vinland Saga was always anti-war. The way it presents the idea of Vinland is one of the most powerful metaphors I've ever seen for the goal of lasting peace, a paradise which we can so clearly envision but haven't reached yet because people continue to be power-hungry, cruel, sadistic, or hateful. Thinking that the story wasn't going to go in a more peaceful direction when Thorfinn's character progression was left in a place perfect for him to learn these lessons is, I'll say it again, silly. To say that the story shouldn't have gone this direction is to say that the story shouldn't have properly followed up from where it left off, that it shouldn't have continued to develop the themes and ideas it already had, that Thorfinn shouldn't have gotten character development, that the story just shouldn't have continued to be interesting. Part of the whole point of this series is exploring the negative effect that glorification of violence has on individual people and society as a whole. This theme was present even in season 1, and so by saying that all you want is more cool action, you're revealing that you either want the story to be less cohesive, or you just didn't get it. I get a strange feeling from seeing this fence still here. A strange but good feeling, knowing that I helped build something that has continued to last even after I was gone from this school, and will probably continue to last for years to come. I used to be someone content with just doing the assignments placed in front of me, endless busy work contributing nothing to anyone, but it was in high school that I finally recognized the fulfillment one gets from building something good meant to last. The feeling of watching it slowly become more complete over days of hard work until it's finally done, and then seeing it continue to contribute something to the world even once the work is done. Whether it be my YouTube videos, any of the other random creative projects I get involved with, or this fence, whether they become something for people to just enjoy, something that sticks with them and genuinely helps them through tough times, or something that makes the garden look a little nicer. I feel good that I have done something that meant anything to anyone. And I'm just some random guy living in 21st century America. I have not had to deal with the constant violence and destruction faced by the characters of Vinland Saga, and that just makes this story even more inspiring for me. These characters, Thorfinn, his father, Einar, Canute, Askeladd, live in a world where war is not just the norm, but worshipped, and yet they still choose to chase their dreams of a better world. Instead of simply accepting the world as it is, they do what they can to rebel against it, trying their best to do good things that help foster the growth and development of others, even if their own flaws or factors outside their control prevent them from achieving everything they wanted. Vinland Saga Season 2 shows a character coming from the depths of despair, grappling with the fact that he has done bad things without making excuses excuses for himself, and finding that his true purpose is to do everything in his power to go against the status quo and replace the current world with a better one for himself and everyone around him. And I think that's more badass than another season of Vikings killing each other ever could be. Go outside and do something with your life. Vinland Saga, Peakland Saga. Okay, bye.